Welcome guys to another video in CrashThatCode. Today we're going to be learning about arrays and loops in Swift. So let's get right into it. Let's open up our Xcode, get started with a playground, and let's get into this. And loops in Swift. Next, exciting stuff. Create, replace, let's just replace that. Don't know why that was there. So far, we have learned a bunch of other things in Swift, so if you haven't watched the other videos, go check them out, like them, subscribe to them, share them. Let's get into this one. So, like always, we don't need to worry about this import UI kit. We're going to get into that way later into the series. Instead, let's focus on the big stuff today, arrays. So, what is an array? An array is a storage unit. It basically allows you to store multiple things in Swift. And so, how is an array written? An array is written very similar to how a variable is written. So we start with var, and then we have our array name. So we'll call this array, my first array, like that. And we're going to create this of type string, and we're going to make it equal, bam, put quotes in there. So now let's just assess all the contents of this array. So this is the starting construct of the array, which is var. And we have the array name. And then over here we have the array type. And this is what a string basically says, is that this array is going to compose of multiple different strings. So it can have 5, 6, thousands of strings within this array. How many ever you guys want. The string can also be an integer. And it can be a couple other stuff as well, which we don't need to get into now. This is just the main kind of basics of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create multiple strings in this array, and I'll show you how to. So with an array, we always use these brackets. So let's get into this. So the first thing we're going to do is let's create an array of fruits. So let's say apple, and then we'll say pear, and then we'll say giraffe, and then we'll say our giraffe's not a fruit. What am I thinking? We'll say banana, and pineapple. Right? Pineapple. There we go. Now we have a couple fruits in there. Let's instead change the array name. Since we're doing a fruits array, let's just do fruits as our name. Right? So, now, here's the tricky part. So, what's special about arrays is we can number the items inside. So right now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 4 items in this array, correct? So now when we look at it, you're probably thinking we would count one item. This is the first item, this is the second item, this is the third item, and this is the fourth item. Well, you're wrong. This is how we actually count it. So in arrays, we count the first item actually as the 0 item. So basically, first item in array equals 0. And I'll tell you why this is important to know later. And then the second item in the array equals 1, and so forth. So, now why is knowing what number value an item in an array is important? This is why it's important. So let's say we wanted to extract something from this array. Let's say we only wanted to extract the third item in this. So what we would do is we would say fruits. Let's say we wanted to extract the second item. We'd put these two brackets, and what we do is we call, let's get the second item maybe. So let's get number 2. So I want you guys to guess what this is going to print out. So this prints out banana. So now you normally think that the second item is pear, but no, like I said, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. And that's how it's counted. And that's why it puts out banana over here. So that's how we basically can call any item we want to within an array. So now let's just create another array, just to get you guys familiar. We're going to create an array called numbers, right? 2 brackets, it's a type of integer, and we'll make it equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? There we go. Then let's call a number. So let's say numbers, and then let's call 0, Okay, so that prints out 1. Now, do you think we can maybe add these? Let's check that out. Let's see, 0 plus 1. Let's see what that does. Okay, so it does work. So we get 2. So what it did was it added the place numbers and gave us 2. Pretty cool, huh? So now basically arrays, this will start to make more sense when we get further into coding, but what you basically need to understand is that it's a storage unit for one type of variable where you can store multiple different things rather than just one. And it gets very important later on in code, especially when it comes to looping through these arrays. So what's a loop? So a loop is something that goes through an array or a certain section of things, and it goes through each and every part of those sections, like the indexes, the 0, the 1, the 2, etc., and it does something with them. So obviously that didn't make much sense to you, so I'm going to code it and then explain it, and I think that'll make much more sense. So to create an array, what we do is, this is the syntax. We use for, and then we can, I'll explain what this I is, and then we use this thing called in, and then we say fruits, which is our fruits array. So, and then we just do this curly bracket, enter. So now what this is doing is, this is taking this letter called I, and I'll tell you what I does later. And then this is this fruits array. So what this whole section is doing is, it is basically going through each and every part of this fruits array and doing something with it. Right now we don't have any code that does anything with it, as this is empty, but later on we're going to do something with them. So basically what it's doing is, it's going through this fruits array, which is apple, pear, banana. So what the code does is it first checks apple, does any code we want to do with apple, then it goes to pear, and does any code we want to do with pear, and then it goes to banana, does anything we want to do with banana, and then goes to pineapple, and does whatever we want to do with pineapple. And that I is what represents apple, I represents pear, I represents banana, and I represents pineapple. And basically, these are all indexes in these arrays. So I represents basically the index value in this fruits array. Well, this is, to summarize, basically what it's doing is, and this can get a bit complicated, so I'm going to keep on repeating myself just to see if you guys can understand. And if you don't, please don't hesitate to drop a question below in the comments. So basically what this I is doing is, it goes through every item in the array individually and does something, whatever that code does. And this for loop will keep on running that code with each and individual item until it has gone through every single item in the array. So now let's do something with it, and then based on that you'll probably be able to make more sense. So the first test we're going to do is we're just going to print I and see what comes out. Because we can take this and print I, and let's see what comes out. Okay. So this is what I returned to us. It returned to us the array apple, pear, banana, pineapple. And this is what it was doing. So it was so the array went through fruits. The first place it went to was apple. And since, well, I is apple because I is that index. Remember, I is every single item in the array, basically. So the for loop goes through the fruits array, goes to I, which is also apple. And since we said print I, it's going to print apple. Then the for loop goes to the next item in the array, which is also I, and prints pear. Then it goes to banana, prints banana, and prints pineapple, and so forth, depending on the items we have. To make this more clear, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create an if statement inside. And remember, go watch the other videos, otherwise this will be very, very confusing. So we're going to say if I, give me a second, if I equals, so we're going to check what it's equal to, apple, then we want it to do something. I'm wondering if we can, yeah. Then we want it to print I equals apple, right? So now let's see if it prints that, and how many times. Okay, so now what the for loop did was, it went through each and every circumstance in this array, and since I was only apple once in the array, it only printed that out once, right? so it went through 4 iron fruits. So the first thing the computer did was it went to apple and said, well, I does equal apple, so I'm going to print this. Then it went to pear, it realized I did not equal apple. Then it went to banana, and it realized I did not equal apple. And then it went to pineapple and realized I did not equal apple. So now, just to show you guys what would happen, we're going to put apple there. And I want you guys to pause the video and guess quickly what's going to happen. So basically what it did was it printed I equals apple twice. And the reason is now, when it went through the whole array, it saw apple, printed it once, because we said if it equals apple. And then went to pear and realized pear doesn't equal apple, so it didn't print anything. Then went to apple again and printed apple again because it found that I equals apple. Went to pineapple and nothing happened. So that's basically the generic way of how a for loop works and arrays work. So this is how for loops work, and this is how arrays work. And so that's basically the overall agenda of how this stuff works. And the reason a for loop is important is because, well, obviously it gets more useful in later code, and it's important to understand this early on so that your life becomes easier when you start to build an app, like I will show you how to do in this course. But basically, this is the basic stuff you need to understand about loops and arrays, and that also ends the video for today. Thank you. Please subscribe, like, and drop a comment if you have any questions. This was CrashThatCode. Thank you. Can't find the off button. Let's figure this out, shall we? Why won't it?